Okay, so let's go over the deck first. This is a relatively standard mono U fairies list. I don't think there's too much difference that you would expect. 18 lands, pretty simple. You got the traditional like 4 of Brine Burrow Intruders, 4 of Moon Circuit Hackers, 4 of Ninja the Deep Hours, all pretty good. I hope you guys kind of already know what the Mono Blue Fairies deck does, but if you don't, what it basically does is that it wants to have flying fairies, and then you want to switch them out. Like pretty much all of them have an ETB effect of some sort. But you want to have flyers that hopefully they can't block, and then you ninja them back. The ninjas draw a card in some way on hit, and yeah, I mean that's basically it. It's basically like ETB little dudes, and then you ninja them back. Then they just draw you cards, and then if you have a human and a non-human, of which there are equal numbers, then you can cast Double Mind and draw 2 cards, and that's pretty good. And this is a very creature-heavy deck. That's probably a little bit unexpected. It has a surprising number of creatures, especially compared to the other fairy decks, which I think usually hovers around like the 18 or 20 or so creature number. And that's usually how it goes here. All right, let's talk about interaction here. You got 2 dispels, 2 spell pierces, and snaps. This is basically your interaction package. Now, this list over here, I forgot where I pulled it from. I pulled it from somewhere anyways. It has an additional 2 of Stairmaster Sprites in the main, and then 1 additional Stairmaster Sprite in the side. And these are basically good for taking care of onboard threats. They're also good for building up your fairy numbers and stuff like that. And it's just, you kind of just need to push damage. The list used to run, for or between 3 to 4 mutagenic growths, but they're not as good right now. I think I read somewhere basically is that like the Mono Blue Fairies deck doesn't necessarily, it wants to have a clock, but it doesn't. It wins usually when life totals are less of a factor. You want to be able to draw cards, you want to be able to have responses, and you kind of just want to lock out the opponent. Like a very comfortable position would be to have 2 or 3 more cards in hand compared to the opponent, and a clock, and basically no way for the opponent to block your flyers. That's really what it is. You'll see in a couple spots here that like even if you can't swing with the ninjas, most of the time if the ninjas hit for 1 time, it's usually good enough, because the idea is that you can buy back a fairy, you can buy back a seer scry, or you can buy back a sprite hit, or in some cases you can buy back a Stairmaster ETB stun effect. So all those are pretty good. Snaps, they're also good for dealing with onboard threats, but snaps in a certain way are kind of card advantage negative. If you snap back a Snaremaster sprite, or a spell starter sprite. Whatever. If you snap back a spell starter sprite, you can, it's basically just like another copy of it. But if they go and kill it, that's pretty bad. You know what I mean? You can also use it for snapping back a ninja if you really need to. Not the best thing to do, but those are always options, really. Just stuff to think about. This one also runs 2 dispels, 2 spell pierces. That's just good for winning the counter wars. Spell pierces, they're really pretty decent in the early game. You can use it for like snagging, obviously kill spells, but they're also good for disrupting card advantage engines. You kind of want to use them for getting rid of Ichor Wellsprings, for example. What the heck's the other thing called? Blood Fountain. You know what I mean? Any of those things are really good targets for Spell Pierce. Their utility drops off once it gets to around turn 6, 7, something like that. When they're basically able to pay it, then they're not as good anymore. You can get into situations sometimes where you snap off 2 spell pierces, but that's pretty dicey, honestly. If you're doing that, you're kind of it's a very tight situation, and you kind of want to close out the game pretty quickly because you're not. It's not a very comfortable spot. Okay, so let's move to the sideboard here. As you can see, these are all 1 mana plays. That's kind of neat. This is a very low to the ground deck. You can the most the most number of lands you probably want is maybe 6. With 6 lands, you can have 3 different forms of counterspell interactions. You can, for example, you can do something like Spell Stutter, counter the kill spell on the Spell Stutter, and then if you need to, you can snap back the Spell Stutter for a second, for a third time. Or you can have something like Spell Stutter, counterspell, dispel. All of those are pretty good. So you basically want to have 6 lands, not too many more than that. It's not super great. All right, so let's turn back to the sideboard here. I got kind of distracted. Okay, so these bind the monster and Snare Master Sprite. These are for dealing with onboard threats, obviously. Dispel. Here, let me just move it around. Relics, graveyard interaction, pretty easy to understand. If you're tight on ticks, you could do well, not really. I was going to say you could do something like Tormod's Crypt and stuff like that, but realistically, you want the Relic because you want to be able to keep using it. You want to be able to replace the self. But yeah, Relic is pretty good. Some lists run like 3 relics or something in the sideboard. I'm talking about like other decks and stuff like that. But you can usually get by with 2. Yeah, let's go back to here. Okay, Steel Sabotage, Annul. This is how you basically beat Affinity. You can use this for beating Affinity. You can use 4 Annuls for beating Bogles. Yeah. That's pretty much it. I mean, a lot of these are kind of self-explanatory. Dispels, you want to use Dispel for dealing with Deadly Dispute. That's basically what Dispel is for. Dispel is for dunking on Deadly Disputes, any of their variants, stuff like that. And Blue Elemental Blast, obviously mono red. You really also want to bring them in cases where the opponent has any chance of bringing in red sweepers. The main reason for that is that if they're going to be able to bring in red sweepers, they're going to be bringing in Pyroblast effect as well too. So in that case, you might as well just board in all 4 of them. We can turn to what cards to bring out and stuff like that afterwards. I'll go over my sideboard decisions in between, like in between games in a match, and yeah, you'll kind of see what it is. The 3 matches I have recorded here for this initial one. You'll see none of them are against mono red, none of them are against Affinity, but yeah, if anyone wants me to try to arrange some of those games, I can try, or at least look through my backlog of recordings. But yeah, this is basically it. This is the list. I like it. Pretty low to the ground. You want to have between 4 to 6 lands, like I said. Yeah, I mean, that's it. Okay, so this is the first match. Let's see how it goes here. Let's take a look at this Mulligan decision first here. On the face of it, it's kind of hard to say if this is a keep or not, but in game 1, you don't know necessarily what the opponent's going to be playing. This is a very marginal keep. You'll see that I end up getting kind of lucky. Put back the of one mind, because it's like basically saying like, oh well, I really need everything to go right. So Conduit Pylons turn 1, I think it's Tron, so I'm like, okay, well, maybe it's okay, I'll play out this Miscreant. They cycle End here, get a Forest. I'm thinking like, I'm still thinking they're Tron, so I'm thinking that like, maybe Crop Rot, maybe. But then once I see the Scrapwork Mutt, I'm like, no, this is definitely, and the Lotless Giant, you see this over here? This is definitely some flavor of dredge. They dredged away Stinkweed Imp. Kind of hard to have seen that there, but you can kind of see it. I rewound a little bit here. You can see back to turn 2. They play this out here. Mutt. You can see that Stinkweed Imp. That's what they discard, right? And that's the reason why they can dredge like 3 here. Dredge 3? I don't know. Dredge 4 maybe. I don't know. 5? Dredge 5? I don't know. They dredged a bunch. That was the point. Alright, so I swing in here. I don't ninja here because I don't know what they're going to play. If they play the imp again, that might be a little hard. Got a little lucky here. They play rumble. Counterspell that just because I have nothing else better to do, essentially. That's really what the reason is. Alright. Play out the islands. Play out Miscreant here. Draw a card. That's pretty good. Now, the aggressive line to do with this here is to Moon Circuit in the Miscreant with the Hacker and then replay it. So then you essentially draw 2. You would be up to 5 cards in hand, but this is a very reactive deck. I'm on the draw, so I want to play a little reactively. Yeah, that's basically why I don't do anything here. I'm also thinking that, you know, if they play the Stinkweed Imp, that's really bad for me. And they don't. And given the way that they played their cards here, it's unlikely that they're going to Imp. Because really the Imp makes it so that your Ninja's plan is kind of difficult to deal with. So I just go Starter here. It seems pretty safe. They would basically have to have a Swamp and then Dark Rit and then Imp. That's not super likely. So at this point over here, I just want to show the cards there in the grave. You can see Lotleth Giant over there. So you gotta watch out for stuff like Dread Return. That's basically what it is. And at this point, I'm still thinking that maybe it's Tortex. So I go there. Again, this is a somewhat just leave yourself open to reaction build here. So they do that. And then I think they go Imp here. Yeah, they do. So I say, no, I don't think I can allow that. And then they go. Now, and I can... This is pretty good here, actually. So they do that. Play out the island here. Now, a aggressive line could potentially go for would be to juggle the Moonseeker Hackers and then play Sprite. So then you still have 2 mana up. That might have been a better line. I think here, as you'll see, I just Moonseeker Hacker the Stutter back so that I can play the Miscreant. Because ultimately what ends up happening is that you could just... Oh yeah, you see, I think I made a mistake here. I didn't play the Miscreant. I don't know, maybe I'm just trying to act like I have something, but I don't, really. I really should just play the Miscreant there. It would have made the turn. It might have affected the clock a little bit, but you'll see here. So go here, like that. Play the Miscreant. These are very good hands. Block that, that makes sense. Bounce back this Sprite, and at this point they just... Yeah, this is a pretty terrible hand you'll see here. Right, this does nothing, so we throw it back. This is pretty good. What should we put back here? Probably the of one Mind. The Dispel is just a way to, you know, for these sorts of things, you kind of have to imagine that maybe they have, you saw them play, like, black, so you gotta think maybe Fumes. So Dispel is good there. Dispel is also good against stuff like Deadly Dispute. It's pretty good, that one, too. Let's see, we minus a Snap, minus a Pierce, minus an of one Mind. So that's -3, +3. So what we added was we added Dispel and 2 relics. And I don't think the sideboard plan was that different going into game 3 either. We'll see. You'll see that there's a game 3 on this one, actually. So they discarded Dread Return. Pretty decent. Play at the Miscreant. At this point, this is pretty good. To go there for Blanchwood Prowler. Now, this is also kind of difficult to deal with because they could theoretically block a Ninja, but they don't here. So, play this out. Now, at this point, I think maybe it would have been better to have gone for Ninja the 2 power. Just to get back a card. But again, you know, you could Sprite, theoretically. Right? Let's see if that ends up being a problem on turn 3. Yeah, you see, if they had let that land, we'd have traded for a ninja. Not great. So, you know, whatever. The fact that we drew the of one mind here might have incentivized us to have ninja'd, but I don't know. Milling a lot is probably kind of problematic too, honestly. Just do that just to have a target. Yeah, now you see, at this point, I definitely made a mistake here by not, you know, pumping the gas. I really should have gone ninja here, I think, no matter what. Even if they did a kill spell, that's still one card out of the way here. They go exhume. Yeah, you see, I mean, let's say, for example, they had exhumed Ent. That's pretty good. They exhume it, I could just snap it back, you know? But the problem with that is that they play it again. I don't have any way of countering it. That's really the issue. So, you know, seemingly here it seems like we made the right decision, but ultimately, and I think you'll see this, I really should have ninja'd. At the very least, I could have gone a one mind, right? I have to let that go. I can't do anything about it. Yeah. And you'll see. So swing 3, whatever, no thinking here. Really should have just, again, not great. You'll see that they gain a lot of life here. I just let this go because there's nothing I can do about it, really. They play Troll. Now, them playing Troll here, I end up countering here. I wonder if that was actually the right decision or not. But we counter it. Now at this point, play that out. I think I put them both back. It was kind of fast. You can kind of see here what I did is that I have 2 islands. I think I might have put one on top and one on the bottom. We'll see here. I think ideally I should have put one top, one bottom. Okay, now at this point, I make a pretty critical mistake. They end up playing a card that I never saw before, play before, but I thought, I was like, that's actually pretty good for their deck. Because it is actually a creature. I snap it back to go like this. But realistically, I would have been fine just letting it resolve here. They play Forktail Sweep, does 1 damage to each creature. I mean, in retrospect, that's a big reason why I should have just ninja'd earlier. You know, my thinking basically is that they played this. There are 2 cards. I could maybe hold them off. That was my thinking, I guess, but ultimately that was wrong. That was the wrong choice. Because now they have a big boy that they can just bring back at any point. Like you see. Just 1 turn too late. Then I play the of one mind just poorly. Just very sad, very sad. I could have played Ninja earlier and then played of one minds. For all those reasons, you know, not super great. And you'll see I concede here. I'll try to make a couple more things happen. Moon Circuit Hacker here. Not going to do much. They just swing in, and at this point, they have a clock, they have Gnaw. Even they have the imp here. I snap the imp just so I can get a ninja hit, but ultimately it's kind of fruitless. But on the other hand, though, I am up about 3.5 minutes. And against a deck like this, that might actually end up being relevant, but I concede here to keep my clock. Sideboard's the same, made no changes. Actually, I put an additional snap back here, and I put all my dispels away. So, in this case, it is, from the base list, is -2 dispel, -2 snap, -1 of 1 mind. So that's -5. So what's the +5 then? +5 would have been, well, relics still. The Snare Master Sprite for +3. And kept the spell pierces. What did I put back here? -2 to spell, -2 snap. Oh, bind. Yes, I brought in a bind. That's what it was. Yeah. So +2 Snare Master, +2 binds. No, sorry, +1 Snare Master, +2 binds, +2 relics. That's -5 +5. Yeah. All right, let's take a look at that Mulligan decision. This is a 1 land, no seer. What is this? Two drops. You could theoretically go Miscreant into Moonscircuit Hacker, but if you play like a turn 2 block anything play, the game is pretty much over at that point, right? So now Mulligan, great. This is pretty great. This is pretty great. We have Snare Master, Brine Barrow, Relic, and Spellstarter Sprite. You could theoretically put back an island here, but I think the last game was still kind of hard in my mind, so I kept 3 lands. Because the idea is that you might want to keep it in a situation where you can pay for the Relic and then also go for Sprite. Now, I bring the Relic in here because they can get rid of cards in bursts. And that's pretty big here. So, yeah. Now, realistically, should I have played a Snare Master Sprite? Probably. Or the Fairy Seer. Probably should have played the Fairy Seer, honestly. But I got rid of that card. I think maybe I was just trying to bluff. Not the greatest bluff, honestly, but whatever. Alright, now we play a Seer. Let's see what we get here. We get an Island and a Spellstarter Sprite. Now, I think the correct way to do this would have been Sprite on the bottom, Island next, because you want to hit your land drops. 4 land drops with the Sprite. You can act like you got something. You can act like you got 2 forms of interaction. But, you know, realistically, the Relic keeps them pinned down pretty good. They got a clock. They actually have a slightly better clock for a while here. They play a plant token, very relevant for things like blocking ninjas. But I just do this. Again, Okay, they get rid of Rumble, whatever, that makes sense. Then I swing 2. So keep a relatively same clock. Play a Seer here. Put back 2 cards. And I think those 2 cards were... Hold on. Okay, of 1 Mind and Spellstarter Sprite. We keep the Sprite on top first because we want it. Of 1 Mind we put back because we have no humans. And at this point, we're kind of digging for a ninja, which makes a lot of sense. They play the Fiend, got no responses for that. There you go. Right? Swing 2, take 2. Now there are 3 cards in hand, not 0 cards in hand. This is kind of an uncomfy situation, honestly, but you can get rid of the Lotless Giant. Pretty good. So. Now, I don't swing the Seer here. Why? Well, I want to block their Fiend. If they swing with the Fiend, I will straight up block there. Well, because I get a card back, you know. They swing in the branch. They can keep swinging the Prowler and stuff like that. But if I'm swinging for 2, they're swinging for 2, then it's relatively the same. That's pretty decent. Now this is great. They go Imp because if they resolve that Imp, this game is pretty much over. Honestly. And I think the presence of Stinkweed Imp makes it so that I wanted to, you know, keep the Bind the Monster. That's sort of the reasoning here. The thing is that most of the time, if they're playing Imp, then they're also playing Deadly Dispute. Now, the funny thing here is I don't know if I saw Deadly Dispute. They're not playing Wellsprings, so this makes things kind of difficult to deal with, or difficult to predict, more like. But finally luck out, get a ninja, swing in these 3 flyers here, bounce back the sprite. Now we're pretty well settled here. Even if they go for something like, you know, pay all your mana for Arms Hadar, still got Stutter's Response. Still pretty okay at this point. They swing in the Prowler here. I don't necessarily know if this is the right choice, because the fact that I can just swing in with everything... Oh, right, because they just block the token. Remember what I said about the tokens blocking the ninjas pretty good? That's an example here. Now, let's... This is a funny spot here. I leave up 5 mana. I don't play the Miscreant, because I think I wanted a bluff. Yeah. That's the only reasonable course of action, is that I wanted to bluff. They already know I have Sprite, so if they somehow deal with some of these things, if they somehow play like a sweeper, I don't want it to seem like they can play a sweeper safely, essentially. And I let that circle go because it doesn't stop me, really. And I am okay with them double blocking. Because I can get back a fairy, and that's pretty okay. And they play the Null, and I just let that go because it's not that much life that they're gaining back here, honestly. This is sort of an aggressive deck, but yeah. They do that with a mutt. Okay, now this is a funny decision point here. Funny decision point. They're going to swing in with both. And what do I do here? I double block. I double block in the Prowler. Why? Because I need to have a way to stop their clock. If I double block on the Prowler here, the Scrapwork Mutt is going to get exiled at the end of turn. They only have 2 mana up, and I still have Sprite in hand. That makes it so that I can safely just like keep up a response for pretty much everything they had. I haven't seen any snuff outs here. Even if they did have snuff out, I do have counterspell. They would basically need to have 3 kill spells for this to like bone me, essentially. And I would have spent 2 cards to their 3 cards. I'd be at 0 cards in hand. They'd be at 1 card in hand. You would basically have to do like cast down, stutter, you know, just any number of crazy things would have needed to have happened. But I didn't see any snuff outs in games 1 or 2. So now this is a pretty good spot for me. Now, I could have attacked him with the Seer as well, too. That probably actually would have been the more correct choice. Ended up not doing it. Realistically, I really should have, because if I'd swung for Seer damage there, they would have been at 10. I would have had 5 there. So at that point, they would have needed a block with the Fiend at some point. So they play out the end here. Again, if they resolve the end... That's also kind of game over, honestly. But I got, you know, my bluffs kind of worked here. They know I still have Stutter in hand. When I kept the Miscreant in hand, I don't play the island just because I want to act like I have something. Have another response. It's pretty okay. Get rid of a card. Play the island there. Realistically, I didn't really need to play the island there, but... I don't know. I guess my thinking is that if I act like I have something, and I just play this Sprite here because I played the Sprite there because I had the Snap. If they go arms for CMC, I could bounce the sprites, put them back in my hand, bounce one of the sprite, put it back in my hand, and then, you know, clear out the arms. But instead, what I do is just I relic here to basically make their mana not do anything, essentially, here. Still got the snap, still got the pierce here. I'll just swing out here. They have to block the ninja because you probably don't want me to draw any cards. Pretty decent. Get back the Snare Master. There are 2 cards. And that's it. Okay, you see? Next match over here. This is a pretty... It's a pretty easy decision, honestly. You can see you have Seer 3 1-mana play, 4 1-mana plays, a 2-mana play, and an of 1 Mind. But the of 1 Mind does nothing without another human. You could reasonably maybe keep this if this was Brine Barrow, or if this was a ninja. Because, yeah. Well, in this one, this is also a very marginal hand. 3 cards, but they don't really do much by themselves. Just play the Miscreant, because realistically, it's whatever. You know what I mean? You could play it, but it doesn't do much. It doesn't accelerate or anything like that. But it's not completely unplayable. And here, I'm just pretending like I got something. That's really it. I could have played the Brine Barrow there, but they're playing Simic. I don't know what they have. And yeah. And I just go here because, you know, having a clock is better than not having a clock. We're making our own drops at least. I have a very, very poor clock on them. But we can still ping in. And doing damage is not irrelevant. Play out Frantic Inventory here. They play out the Growth Spiral. And adequately fine for Spell Pierce. And play Jace's Erasure. Okay, now the fact that they play Jace's Erasure, doing all this over here, this basically seems like to be like a fog deck of some sort. Now, as you can see, they don't end up actually playing any fogs, that I can see, but these are all sort of like mill cards. So here, the game plan really is to stall out, and yeah, basically to stall out here. Against these types of decks, the only way that you can really go forward with it is to just try to, you know, aggro them down. But it does not end up working. They play Augur, and the stops ninjas on the ground. Really bad. Augur is terrible for ninjas. Just terrible. It basically stops ninjas from doing stuff. You can still fly over them and stuff like that, but yeah, it's not ideal. Alright, let's go back and look at that Seer Scry decision. I wasn't really paying attention there. Let's see here. Play the Seer here. At this point, I think, like, okay, you know what? I'm still potentially okay. So it was Dispel and Of One Mind. You play both of them at the top, no matter what. Right there. They play at Frantic Inventory, and then they mill. And this, I make really terrible decision here. In retrospect, it probably doesn't matter all that much. But the fact that they have the mill off the Jace's Erasure makes it so that even if you do Scry with a Seer, it doesn't really do anything. Yeah, so whatever. Yeah. And there you go, you see, they play the desert. Terrible. Absolutely terrible for me here. Just the worst. And I just concede here. Let's go over why. Let's go over why. Theoretically, last turn I could have played the Brine Barrow. Swinging with everything. They killed this Moon Circuit hacker. Blocked the Brine Barrow. I get him for 3. Let me think here. I get him for 3, put them down to 7. But the honest fact of the matter is that with the desert, it makes it really difficult for the fairies to get through. I think realistically, I could have maybe continued on with it. But yeah, this is sort of a bad concede decision here. I basically just concede here. But I guess my thinking was is that they have 7 cards. It's unlikely for their 7 cards to be completely worthless. So if they play another augur, for example, that's pretty much game over anyways. I don't know. All right, let's look at the sideboard here. This is a okay hand. I think I do end up keeping this. But let's see here. Well, let's look at the sideboard here. All right, I put back all the snaps because they don't play any creatures that seem to matter, and aside from the augur, realistically, I put back all the snaps and brought in a Dispel, 2 Relics, and a Snare Master. Dispel is for their blue stuff, whatever. Snaps, really, I think, is just because I'm thinking, like, it doesn't end up... There's not that many creatures for me to have to deal with, I think, was my reasoning. In retrospect, and I think mostly it's just because, like, these were kind of difficult mulligan, like, sideboarding decisions. If you could snap back the augur, that actually makes some amount of sense. I think I was still thinking, like, I'm playing against Fog. I want to get rid of their Moment of Pieces, stuff like that. Oh, what was the Mulligan decision here? Circuit and Snare Master. On the face of it, this seems like a perfect hand. I'm sure I did Snare Master on top, Moon Circuit afterwards. They play Ash Barrens here. And again, it's basically saying, I need to aggro. I need to aggro. This could have been stopped with a single augur, really. But it ends up being okay. I mean, I go Seer here. Dispel top, Island on the bottom. That would have been the correct decision, I think. Swing in with the Moon Circuit. Draw the Dispel, discard an Island. In retrospect, maybe I should have kept... Yeah, I think maybe I kept both islands on top. I can't remember now. But I'm saying here, I just need to keep up the damage. Oh, and they have the desert. That's right. Now here I make another bad decision. I stutter here. I could have just dispelled. Realistically, I could have just dispelled. And the fact that I didn't is really bad, honestly. They play the augur, and that could have been stuttered. Yeah. Play that one. Yeah, but at this point, it's basically... I just made some bad decisions. Realistically, if I had dispelled the brainstorm and then stuttered the augur, the clock would have been better. But this is just an example of making poor sequencing decisions. When deciding on the counter spells to play, really just go for the more restrictive ones. The more, what's the word for it? No, restrictive is basically what I'm trying to say. Go for the most restrictive ones first. Yeah. You see, against the desert here, I think I just need to have been more aggressive and realize at that point that the things that matter are the things that I can block. But at that point, I was kind of just boned to a certain degree, I guess. Deserts are really bad. Yeah, and again, I don't attack. I think if I had attacked with everything, maybe I could have kept something going. But knowing that they had the weather in hand, they play the augur here. I just concede. I just played this one really poorly. Realistically, I could have just kept attacking and then hope for something. You can always use ninjas as a way to boost, to have like unexpected damage. But I don't know. I think I was just mentally trained, and I didn't think properly, really. This is almost a perfect hand. If the island was switched out for Moonsarker Hacker, would have been even better. But this is okay. This is fine. Again, it's another type of Gardens deck, I think. Play the Seer here. Let's look at the decision. Yeah, you see Ninja top, Island on the bottom. Don't need the other land. Perfectly fine. They play out a Spell Bomb here, just to have something to play, essentially. Go here. I want to keep things reactive, so I don't Ninja here. Also, they could have snuffed it. If they snuff out the Ninja, that's absolutely terrible. They play Eviscerator's Insight on the little plant boy. You could theoretically have stuttered here. Not a great reason for it though, honestly. Now I play out the tight. Now I do this here because my thinking is that like let's say for example they would basically need to have like cast down and a snuff out or two snuff outs. The absolute backbreaking play they could have would be two snuff outs and a cast down. Or no, actually they wouldn't have needed to do that anyways. They could just go cast down, snuff out. Cast down on the Sprite, snuff out on the Miscreants, Tithing Blade ETBs, gets rid of the Fairy Seer. They'd be down to 3 cards in hand, and I'd be out everything. In retrospect, I think here you could have just counterspelled. Which probably is a little safer, honestly. Because if they go counterspell here, they would have, you know, been sort of a similar spot, I guess. But, you know. Now, this Crypt Rats here. I let this resolve. I don't know what I was thinking letting it resolve, honestly. I guess my thinking was that if they play the 2 swamps here to kill the ninja, I could snap back the ninja, then I'd be pretty okay here. They'd be down to 3 cards, I draw another card. They'd be at 3 cards to my 5. I honestly expected them to try doing it here, and I could have snapped here. That would have been pretty decent. Then I put out the Miscreant just to draw another card. And this seems fine to me at the time. They go Toxin here. Again, this is another one of those situations where I really totally could have just ninja'd back the thing. But I needed for them to have... And then I just let it go because I still have another Ninja the Deep Hours. And that was totally fine. I end up countering the Ichor Wellspring, actually. Because they have a clue token, 1 card in hands. It's weird, but I'm up on cards. It's really weird to say, but I did end up being up on cards there. That's a very funky decision, honestly. Realistically, I could have just countered, and it probably would have been fine. I just wasn't sure what else they had. With Brian Baron Shooter of One Mind, I think I did both on top. Of One Mind on top first, though. And they just don't do anything here. I swing with a Seer here. And go Ninja. They have a kill spell for the Ninja. I could have counterspelled. That would have been fine. Now, they don't play this correctly either, honestly. You could have just clue scrolled, or clue tokened here, drew a card, Nile Spellbomb, drew a card, done all of this before I, done all this before I attack with the Ninja, or even with the trigger on the stack. That's not the greatest decision, honestly. But it ends up being that there are 4 cards to my 6. In reality, there is not too much of a great reason I've done it that way. Island, Sprite. I think I put the island on the bottom of one mind. Just draw the Sprite. That's perfectly fine. Still pretty okay for now. I'll let the Tightening Blade resolve. They snag the steer. They snag I just sack the Seer. And this is sort of okay at the moment. Play the island. Play the Seer. And it was Moon Circuit and a Snap. I think in that instance, you just want to not hit islands. Snap is fine. Snap is basically another copy of Sprite in this instance. That's perfectly fine. You swing, draw, get the Moon Circuit Hacker. I really should have put the Snap on top. That would have been the safest move, honestly. They go here tithing away the plants. It's hard for me to have said what the correct play there would be. You could have blocked with the Ninja and then Eviscerators incited the plants. That might have been a better move. I don't know. I don't know. You could have Eviscerators incited the Ichor Wellspring, actually, now that I think about it. It probably would have been fine too, honestly. But here you see I'm at 4 cards, they're at 7. You could, even if the Eviscerator's Insight resolved, I'll play the Sprite here. This is fine. Because with an additional fairy, even if they killed one of them, still okay. At this point, you just keep attacking, just keep dealing damage. It's hard to say what actually would have, prevented me from winning. You could have Pulse of Marasad. You can go Pulse here. Get back the Crypt Rats. Go up on cards. You could play an of one mind here. This is fine. Return those back. Now I proactively returned back the Sprite here. They could have killed it theoretically, but they didn't. But they also didn't go for Eviscerator's Insight on the Ichor Wellspring. That would have been reasonable as well too. I have to imagine they probably have Pulse because they didn't get rid of the Crypt Rats. That must mean something for them. You can also have like a Witch's Cottage too. Those are all reasonable things. But I just keep it with the beatdown plan, just dealing damage. That's enough for now. Let's look at the sideboard plan. I did not bring in any relics. I just didn't see any graveyard interaction. I think realistically they could have had like Blood Fountain, Pulse of Marasa, Witch's Cottage. Realistically only brought in let's see. -2 of one mind. Yeah. -2 of one mind. So that means that I must have brought in Dispel. No, what else did I bring in then? Huh. I must have brought in just a Dispel and a Steel Sabotage. Steel Sabotage maybe for like a flipped. For like a flipped Tithing Blade? That's probably not the right way to do that, honestly. This one ends up being a little bit tighter than I really needed it to be, I think. Pilfer, with the Pilfer on the stack, I go Brine Barrow here. Because I need a card, they end up getting rid of a counterspell. That's probably fine, honestly. And I go Snare Master here. But if they had landed a Crypt Rats, for example, well, I don't know. Oh, you see Witch's Cottage, you see. This is actually would have been a pretty good reason I brought in Relics. This is probably incorrect. I think in retrospect, maybe I go like -1 Spell Pierce, maybe. But on the other hand, Pierce would also 1-for-1 with the Pilfers, actually, and it'd be tempo positive. Yeah. Pierce is also good for things like Tightening Blade. That's another reason to have kept it in. And they do it, and yeah, get rid of the Brine Barrow. In these sorts of instances, Brine Barrow, well, I guess I had another one. That's probably the reason why, yeah. This is still just kind of keeping up with the beatdown plan. They don't do anything here on their turn. That's fine for me. So just keep swinging. They block one here. This is fine. Go Deadly Dispute here. Go Dispel. You see, and Dispel and the Dispute's actually probably the best plan. Like the best thing to do here. If they had another Dispute here, actually, that probably would have been fine. They had Disputed on top of it with Tithing Blade, and they do with the inside here. That might have been actually the better decision, honestly. They go Pilfer here. They get rid of the Snap. I don't actually know if Snap is the right spot to do here. I think the Miscreant actually would have been worse for me if they had gotten rid of the Miscreant. But swinging with 2, I play I don't play Miscreant. That's kind of weird. That actually ends up being a good play, and you'll see why here, because I get a Miscreant. Yeah, they could have. They end up getting rid of the Snare Master. That makes sense, I guess, but the fact that I was able to play Miscreants, draw a card, this ends up being pretty good for me, but I'm still kind of, at this point, it kind of looks like I'm still behind, but I'm still chipping in for damage, and that ends up being relevant. Get rid of their stutter. Now, this is a funny point here. This is the reason why the chipping in for damage thing matters here. Once I swing with this, I have a 2-turn clock. It's pretty crazy, honestly. It's very strange, but you can kind of turn the corner pretty quickly. They go here for Crypt Rats, and the perfect top pick. I kept an island in hand earlier, so maybe it seems like I had something, but I really realistically didn't. I just draw a Miscreant here, and again get super lucky, just super lucky. Go here, swing in, get in the Ninja, get back the Spell Stutter Sprite. Just, yeah. Let's see, what would have been necessary for that to have gone wrong for me? You would have needed to been like, let's see, like Crypt Rats, toxin analysis. It would have had to have been like Crypt Rats into toxin analysis. It would have go toxin for Crypt Rats for 2, right? It would have been let's see, it would have been 6 creatures on the battlefields at that point. Go up plus me too, right? So 8 ping, like 8 little whatever ping dudes or whatever like that, right? So 2 times 8, 16. They would have gone up to 18 life. I'd have been down to 18 life. They would have drawn a card. That would have been just, they're out there. But the fact that I was able to get rid of 1 Crypt Rats, that worked out pretty well. So yeah. Yeah, those are all the matches I recorded. It's my first video. It's pretty rough, I feel. This is, I'm basically recording this after I finished my initial editing. Try to do better next time. I'll probably just keep playing Mono Blue Faeries for at least a little bit longer. And, yeah, we'll see what happens. Feel free to put comments or whatever. That's what people do, I guess. So, yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it.